welcome back to the Go AI podcast. We are thrilled to have Angela Bailey as our special guest today. Angela, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So I'm an HR consultant. I've been in human resources most of my adult life. I'm not going to tell you how long that is, but it's a very long time. I did do a short stint in business development for a technology company, as you probably remember.
Yeah.
But I am born and raised in Louisville, and am raising young adults and fur babies. So that's my personal life. That's all you need to know about that.
I love that. Wait, how old are your children?
18, and I have one that's about to be 21.
Oh my gosh.
I can't believe it.
So you're a senior. About to
Yes.
Okay.
I have graduation a week from today.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Well, yeah, while this is airing, we're in May, so you'll be like empty nester almost, kind of.
Yes. Well, you would think that, but I think they're going to be on my payroll for a while. So
Fair enough. I
Yeah.
tried to do that as well.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, Angela, I know that you have a wealth of knowledge in HR and consulting, and marrying the two. I've been around you in lead groups and in your sphere of influence for years, and so I'm really, really happy that you're joining us today and
Thank
grateful.
you.
So thank you. When HR, I think about and just human connection. I really don't think about AI. When you think about AI, what comes to mind?
I think about making my life and everyone else's life simpler.
Love that.
And, you hear a lot of people talk about, well, how can we use AI? Where can we use AI? And I think that's the wrong question. I think you should ask, where can we automate? Where can we simplify? Analytics is really a big need in human resources, and AI can certainly help with that. There's so much process and paper involved in onboarding and managing and offboarding an employee that those processes can be impacted with AI. So for me, professionally and personally, I just think, how can it make my life simpler? Just like you all maybe, I know you are too young to remember, but when we all finally had real access to the internet.
Oh, I remember the dial-up. I remember being in my
Oh,
basement,
yes.
being like, "Wow, this is like alien-esque. Like this is wild."
I-
And then if someone
yeah.
called, you were immediately kicked off.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
I remember I worked for a very large consulting company based here in Louisville. I don't know if I can say their name or not.
Okay.
So I worked for Mercer,
Okay.
and we were like just small groups at a time getting internet access put on our desk computers.
Okay.
And, it was almost like running to the person's desk that gets it first in your
Sure.
area and playing with it and
And
seeing what you can
watching.
do.
Yeah.
Similar experiences happened in my life with AI. Being in an office setting with your HR team, even your technology team. A few years ago, we were all gathering around people's PCs and laptops, watching them use ChatGPT and playing with it. And, it was a novelty. Now it is really changing how we do business and how we do our work.
In what ways?
Well, let's talk about sort of the life cycle of the employee.
Okay.
Like I mentioned earlier, you post a job, you get a gazillion resumes, hopefully, and you have to screen for those that are the best fit for skills, for experience, whatever your requirements are. That has been a manual process for a long time. And then we have what we call ATS, applicant tracking systems,
Okay.
that have been able to screen based on some criteria, but still very flawed. I mean, we are focusing on, programming keywords. And now you've got AI, which can really automate that process. Now, it's still not perfect.
Sure.
And everything that we do with AI requires human oversight, human auditing, the checks and balances and make sure it's working. But just that process alone of screening applicants for a job can save hours and hours for an HR person.
Mm-hmm.
And then their onboarding. So that's getting their tax forms filled out, getting all the enrollment pieces completed. So, you've got your benefit choices, for example. So when you get hired,
Mm-hmm.
your company may offer you medical, dental, vision, all those benefits that require some sort of enrollment. But companies are getting smarter for the most part, just like AI is getting smarter. And a lot of companies offer, sort of a la carte menu of benefits. And that's been a very manual introduction for employee. And now
Okay.
AI can personalize that and make it a more automated process. And then you go through the gamut of the employee's life cycle at the company, the annual renewal of benefits, calculating how someone's performance reviews, performance ratings would influence if you have a merit increase process, for example, would influence what percentage of that merit budget, would go into their pay increase. And then you've got succession planning, workforce planning, just a lot of pieces that have required HR professionals a ton of hours to complete. And AI, again, with the right human oversight, the right, auditing and making sure that you are still maintaining ethical standards, non-discrimination, and all those important pieces. It has really shifted and will continue to shift how HR people do their work. It will not replace good HR people. It will not replace that human element, which the human connection you mentioned earlier when we were talking about what you think of with
Yeah.
HR. That's so important. And when I think about what mistakes might companies make, it's trying to remove that human connection and that human oversight. And a lot of companies have already done that, even pre AI. With
Really?
Yeah,
Huh.
so that's a mistake. I think you can automate process.
Sure.
You cannot automate human connection. And
I love
so
that.
there's a lot of risk to all the things that I just enthusiastically talked about because I am enthusiastic about it. But I just think that's the future of how we do a lot of process. And HR is a very process oriented function.
That's incredible. And I love that like one have and believe in human oversight within these AI processes. I hear a lot of even just people in general afraid that AI is going to replace their job. So, being in HR is that something that you've come into contact with for whether it's employees or employers? How does that conversation go for you?
So, I mean, some of that concern is valid.
Okay.
You think about manufacturing and production lines and how machines have automated a lot of that process
Mm.
and really have replaced some manual jobs.
Oh.
AI will do that. I'm not going to pretend it won't. But it's going to allow people to do more interesting, more engaging, more leadership, strategic type of functions and not let me make sure these forms are filled out appropriately and let me make sure all the boxes are checked and let me make sure that I have created this spreadsheet and all these formulas the way they need to be and that they're all working. I mean, all of those pieces are going to be better with the influence and the introduction and what am I trying to say? The integration
Of AI.
of AI. People will be able to engage other talents and
Mhm.
not be clogged down with those processes.
Yeah, and I mean, in my mind, I don't know if it's positive thinking, but hopefully that too is more positive work that allows them to
For sure.
utilize their brain a little bit more than just checking boxes or,
Yeah.
things that are mundane tasks that you get tired of and maybe don't bring as much joy as strategic thinking and things that are higher level to your point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in HR, what are some examples of um, with AI automating sort of more monotonous processes that could create more time rather than save time? It creates more time to develop other skills for HR personnel. What what skills would you develop in that new time that's been given by AI?
Well, I think what I get excited about is more along the lines of performance coaching,
Mm.
leadership development. I mean, all industries, in my experience, have this pattern, and it can be retail, restaurant, technology, any industry you can think of. If you are really, really good at your job, then you get promoted to a supervisor or a manager or in a leadership type role. But then you're not coached and trained and given the opportunity to develop those leadership skills. So we all know just because you're an outstanding basketball player doesn't make you an outstanding coach,
Love that example. Yes.
right? And it's the same in the workplace in any industry. So in my mind, going back to, what should humans be spending their time and talent on, it's not checking boxes and, all those really manual processes. It is really helping people be better at their job. And so that's where the performance coaching and management comes into place. Also, it's helping people figure out what their skills and talents are and, that coaching in their career path is sometimes lacking, often, I would say lacking, in the HR relationship with employees because they just don't have the time and the bandwidth to do it. And your managers will always say, I don't have time for that. Performance management has always been a check the box kind of activity for an employer. We did this years ago, and I even was on sort of a road show to talk about really shifting performance management and moving it more to a coaching model where you're meeting with the employee at least quarterly in a formal sense and at least monthly in an informal sense to talk about their performance and their skills development and coaching. And the feedback is always, I don't have time to do that.
Yeah, I'm
I
too
don't
busy
have
doing the
time to do
boxes,
that.
checking the
That's right.
boxes.
That's right. So that's an answer, I think, Connor, to your question is it's really working with people and helping those people get better at what it is they want to do and should be doing for the company.
In my mind, you mentioned earlier that HR and certain programs, since at the federal level, there's been some shifts. They've been cut, budget's been slashed, et cetera. Um, it seems like now with AI, it's more important than ever to have those, the emotional connection, the human oversight. What is your take on, these companies that are kind of eliminating the human connection side and only, automating their process and using AI only? I mean, where do you think they're going to be in 5 years?
They're going to really struggle, in my
Okay.
opinion. And, think about we've heard about employee engagement for a long time,
Yeah.
right? And how important employee engagement is. So the companies that aren't good at that don't retain good talent. Well, if you have a company that um, loses human connection, it's really the same. It's the
Cycle.
same cycle. It's a very similar issue. So you're going to have that reputation of not being a good place to work,
Yeah.
right? And you're not going to attract and retain good talent.
Makes sense to me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we've been talking a lot about um, automation, just handing certain tasks off to AI. I mean, my grandfather was in HR, and my dad said that a common sight at home was just a massive stack of applications, just sifting through it, sifting through it, sifting through it.
Been there.
Wh- What would you not want to ever automate within your role as an HR consultant?
Oh, I think what I just talked about,
Mhm.
the coaching,
The coaching
right?
side.
And employee relations can't be automated either. So, if you're, imagine this, and I
Mm.
think there was a movie that tried to do this too, but someone needs coaching because their performance is poor for whatever reason.
Mhm.
And you have some sort of chatbot or um, some sort of computer process that delivers them that information, gives them guidance on how to do the correction, and there's no way for them to respond, to have that conversation. And often what we see in HR is when someone's performance is poor, there may be something going on in their personal life. That's the heart of employee relations, is really getting to the root of what is going on with that person. And performance is just one example. I mean, I have dealt with employees that have been through domestic violence, the loss of a child or a significant other, the loss of their home due to fire
Jeez.
or whatever. You cannot replace that with AI. People need support. That's the heart.
Love.
I mean, when you think of, I hope when people think of HR, they're not just thinking they're tracking my attendance, they're making sure my paycheck is right, they're managing my benefits, they hire and they fire. There's so much more to that, and that's in my mind what AI can't replace.
I know that we were talking about like being around the computer and watching ChatGPT, a few years ago and it being a novelty. What, from an AI standpoint, have you integrated in your personal life?
I love talking about this. So the very first time I used Chat GPT, I do some writing, creative writing. I write poetry. It's something that my real close friends know, but I don't talk about, and I don't really publicize. But I love to write poems for people when they have a milestone birthday,
Mm.
and I do that for my best friend. And we've got a few years, but I thought, what would Chat GPT write for her milestone
Oh,
birthday? That's the first time I ever used it.
oh, that's cool.
Obviously, I'm not going to use that version, but you put in your, write a poem using these personality aspects or whatever I put in as the prompt. Um, but of course, it's not in my voice.
Yeah, sure.
You can tell it's not for me. But that was the first time that I used it. But in my personal life, if I use it for research, will you tell me about what the reviews are in such and such restaurant, or you know maybe some
Oh, I love
oddball
that.
stuff. um I do use it to help create the draft of a letter
Mm-hmm.
or a note. I have used it to do outlines for presentations. So, I'm a public speaker.
Yeah.
Um, and, the prompts have to be good. And obviously, you have to edit to make it your own. But oh my gosh, how much time that saves to put together your outline for whether it's a PowerPoint presentation, it could be a leadership presentation, whatever it is. I have used it a great deal, and that crosses more into professional, but it's personal to
But I
me,
was going to say,
right?
sure.
My son's going to go to college, and so we used it to, which colleges offer the best psychology
Oh my
programs
gosh,
and
that's cool.
film because he wants to do both. Um, so there's so many fun ways to use it, but the poem is my favorite to talk about because
Mhm.
who does that for their first Chat GPT? But
You, and it's wonderful.
yeah,
Well, and I love that. I mean, you're kind of using the technology right alongside your 18-year-old son. Is he teaching you right now AI? Is he utilizing it more than maybe even you want? Or is he, are you teaching him how to utilize it?
oh no, I'm not teaching him. Um, Yeah, I have learned a lot from him. These young people, This stuff is just integrated. I
In
mean,
their
they don't
life.
even talk about, well, how are you going to integrate this in your life? It's just ingrained in what they've been exposed to in their upbringing. And, you know, these teenagers and young adults, they live on YouTube. They watch all these YouTube videos on how to do this, or, you know, even he used to watch someone who was playing video games and
Twitch.
talking
I
about
know
it.
that was big.
I'm like,
Yeah. Yep.
how crazy is that?
It's wild.
Yeah.
I think about it when I was so I have a brother and a sister, and my brother and I are 13 months apart, and whenever he would have his friends over, you know, it was like Sega Genesis or Nintendo, and I think about this Twitch where you're watching video game or people play video games as like me in the basement just watching my brother and his friends play the video games and not playing for hours, but we sat there and watched. It's like they're doing that with people they don't know and that they are interested in the game or they know the game. And it's really not that far removed from what we did, only there's that technology aspect where you
Right.
can watch people all over the world. So
That's crazy.
it's, yeah, that's wild to me.
Yeah. So what was your first exposure personally?
So,
Chat Poop?
well, no, I mean, you know, it's funny. We, Google and search engines had actually inserted machine learning. RankBrain was Google's like machine learning within the search engines 10 years ago now. I mean, 8 to 10 years ago. And so we knew that marketing was going to be at a crossroads with, you know, SEO, pay-per-click advertising, like how this was going to evolve, right? And so we actually collaborated with an enterprise AI company, Findability Sciences. They are worldwide now, and to gain a better understanding of how is this going to affect businesses at the enterprise level. And truly, I think we were too early because businesses really, they knew about AI, but they had never used it. And then ChatGPT rolled out 2023.
Yep, late 23.
Late 23, and all of a sudden it was like, you know, these meetings, all the content that we had written, everything that we were talking about with AI, it's like it finally clicked to consumers, which at the end of the day are C-suite executives, are presidents of their company, are, you know, leaders making these decisions that this type of technology, if I can use ChatGPT to create a first draft and do all of this, imagine if I was able to integrate this within my company. And so this was kind of at the time where then we were like, okay, instead of focusing on, you know, integrating technology and selling into businesses the right type of technology for, you know, their AI transformation, why don't we start just educating? So we've came out with, you know, ebooks and blogs and this podcast to truly bridge the gap between executives, C-suite level leaders, and this type of technology where, you know, we still work with a lot of businesses, and I would consider, you know, we touch a lot of different levels of business from startup to enterprise, and you'd be shocked at how little some of these leaders use digital. You know, we're talking still trying to navigate their iPhone and still trying to figure out their, you know, how to download things to their desktop, or some of them don't even really bring home laptop computers. Like they're kind of, you're teaching old dogs new tricks. And, you know, that's really how Guardian Owl got started with SEO, is we wanted to help bridge that gap. So
I remember that.
yeah.
I remember when y'all started.
Yeah. So it's similar to kind of, you know, hey, this is like you said, the internet, and now, you know, the internet rolling out, now AI, we kind of were along for that SEO ride. And now we feel like we can help educate, hopefully, and bridge some gaps with this technology.
I would not be shocked though about those CEOs and C-suite leaders that have not gone digital. I've worked with them.
Yeah. Well, and,
Yeah.
you know, do you like, you've worked with them?
Yes.
To me, it's a fear of businesses going out of business or them not having a position, not because, you know, they don't know AI, but just because they're not willing to use it to make their lives and work more efficient. Can you talk to me about like where you think those leaders will be in 10 years?
Replaced.
Okay. Yeah.
For sure. And it's not just about they won't use AI. I mean, it's just that entire resistance to change and grow. Grow with your thinking, grow with your leadership, grow with how you're doing your business.
And change is a necessary ingredient with growing.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Those leaders will not be around.
I believe it.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, manufacturing, restaurant industry. You have been able to lead in employees in different industries. What industry do you feel like right now has been the most affected by AI, just from the ones that you've worked in and with?
I would say call centers.
Call
Anything that
centers.
has a call center
Wow.
aspect, because chatbots have been around for a while, but that's a butt in a seat with a phone, a headset,
Yeah.
um, making calls, answering questions, um, asking questions, and chatbots and AI are replacing people doing that. I mean, that in my mind is one of those manual processes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That an employee, and it's not a fun job, and
No.
that's Angie opinion. I remember the first call center I went into was super early in my career. I was in my 20s, and I was visiting because they were like the back end of a benefit vendor that I was considering bringing on board.
Oh, wow.
And I went into their call center environment. And I mean, they were very rigid environments. You were told when you could take a break, when you could go to the restroom, when you could eat, have a drink of water. I mean, it's just such a rigid environment. How many calls you take, how long your calls are. So that's, in my mind, a good thing that AI is improving. It's improving the experience for the user of the call center for whatever reason. And I'm not talking about getting lost in those stupid dial one for
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
two for
yeah,
that.
exactly.
But it is improving that experience because you can get your questions answered anytime, anywhere on your, handheld device, and not have to talk to a person, not have to wait on hold, not have to hit the 1, the 2, the 3. And then on the other end of the call center, you can, allow, like I talked about earlier, these people to do something that's a little bit less rigid, more meaningful work. They're taking the escalation,
All of them.
events. They're getting to do the research to solve the problem, and not just that mundane, call after call after call. I think,
I didn't even think about that.
yeah,
Call centers.
been, I think, hugely impacted. But I think all industries,
Mm-hmm.
really. Marketing for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about where AI is headed and how it could affect HR. Um, AI, as it's developing now, we're going beyond just ChatGPT with where you just say, write me a poem, and it kind of is able to predict mathematically what word should go after the other word and where to put the line break. And then it's like, all right, that's what a poem is. There it is. And it gives you it pretty much immediately.
It's great for haikus.
Yes. Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
And the development now is to go beyond those large language models and get what are called reasoning models, where you can give it a harder prompt and it will have to, it'll take longer to give you a response, but in that time that you're waiting, it's reprompting itself and sort of running the question over and over and over just to see, okay, what's the best way to tackle this question. In HR, I could foresee, giving an AI that's specifically made to answer questions of compliance and, who was in the wrong, that sort of thing, and internal um, office kind of issues in HR. What kind of questions would you give to such an AI, and what would you give to a human to handle?
Well, the human is really easy. Anything that um, is personal to the employee,
Okay.
like we talked about performance, something that is affecting them, anything that requires human judgment, human compassion, human understanding. You know, I can't emphasize enough the importance of maintaining human in the human resources environment.
Mm-hmm.
Where I see AI going in HR and where it can really have a huge impact and benefit to organizations is the predictive aspect, predictive analytics.
Yeah.
It is pretty challenging, and there are a lot of software tools that are out there to assist, but you still have to know how to get the data, how to get the right data, how to configure the data, to figure out workforce planning, for example, and knowing what skills that you're going to need, what the head count looks like. I think about this construction company that I worked for, and we had a lot of trades, electricians, plumbers, HVAC mechanics, and we were taking on all these projects, and I had been on board, gosh, 10 days maybe, not long. And one of the supervisors came to me and said, we need to be hiring 70 electricians now. And if you know anything about trades, you know that,
That's going to be hard.
there's a shortage of
Supply and
people
demand.
in trades positions, and hiring 70 already skilled licensed electricians is not something you can do in a month, probably 6 months, what have you.
Yeah, because turnover and attrition
Right,
too. So you're
right.
hiring that,
Well,
but then who's leaving?
you have to hire them, you have to steal them from somewhere else. Electricians aren't sitting around, looking for work. If they want to work, they're
There's work.
working.
Yeah.
Right. So we went through this exercise of workforce planning and really trying to figure out, what do we really need, right? What headcount and skills, and in which positions do we need people next week, next quarter, next year? And I mean, talk about spreadsheet madness, but that's something that all organizations need to be doing, regardless of industry and what your workforce looks like. And it's still challenging to do with the best software. And conversations, can be challenging, figuring out budgets and investment and talent and, direction of your company. But the predictive analytics is where I would use AI the most.
I love that answer, especially again with being able to predict the right applicants for the right companies and
Yes.
making it a good fit for both. So, Angie, thank you so much for being on the podcast
Thank
today.
you.
If you had to leave, HR leaders who are listening to this with some advice when it comes to AI, what would you leave them with?
Check your ego at the door. Don't fear growth. Don't fear technology. And just be smart. Be smart. Ask the right questions. Where can we automate? Where should we automate? Where should we leverage technology instead of where do we put AI? Where do we use AI? That's not the right question.
I love that.
And that's true for any technology. And HR folks have been selecting payroll systems, HRIS systems, all sorts of technology rooted systems for years.
Mhm.
You don't go out and look for a system just because it's there. You go out and look because there's a need.
There's a problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
that you're trying to fill.
Same.
I love that. Well,
Yeah.
if any of our listeners want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Easy to find on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Angela Bailey.
Okay.
My personal email address is angelabaileyhr@gmail.
Perfect.
And here in Louisville, Kentucky. So
Fantastic. We will drop that information in the show notes. Thank you
Thank you
again
very
for
much.
being a guest.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.